welcome to the new faculty orientation. I'm Anna Olson. I'm interim executive director at CTRL. I probably met some of you yesterday. Thank you for being there. If you did not have a chance to attend yesterday's orientation, we recorded the whole day and we will share that video recording probably by the end of the day today so that you can catch up on some of the information that you may have missed. So we are excited this morning to welcome Jeff Brown, Interim Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, who is going to talk to you about student support services and resources. Welcome, Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Anna. Good morning and welcome to everyone. I know this is probably maybe the 20th time you've been welcomed. I know you all had a long day yesterday, but I am excited to be with you for a brief moment today. Congratulations on joining AU. And again, my name is Jeff Brown. I'm serving as the Interim Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. And I'll tell you a little bit here more about what that means. But we've got about 30 minutes here to talk you through a real brief overview of student support services and resources. And I'll certainly wrap up with, hopefully we'll have at least a few minutes to ask for you to ask some questions, but I'll also provide you my contact information if you want to reach out individually and speak with either myself or one of my team members. So let's go ahead and get started. So can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen and you see the agenda right now? Awesome, thank you. So this is what we're going to talk about. It's a lot, so I might talk fast, but we're going to talk a little bit about students of concern and our care network. Focus a lot also today on kind of health and well-being resources and students of concern. And that's certainly not the only thing that we do in student affairs, but in relation to the work that you're going to do and what is high on a lot of our agenda, that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time here today. We'll also touch on confidentiality and privacy, and then also just some general tips from my experience in working with faculty here at American in terms of what you can do. And then, like I said, we'll wrap up with some questions here. So real briefly, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the Division of Student Affairs here at American University. A lot of words on the screen here, but I divided us up kind of into 4 buckets, if you will, and essentially really 3 of these buckets are within the Division of Student Affairs here at American University. A little background on me before I jump in here is I have worked my entire career, about 24 years now, within college student affairs. Here at American, and previous to my time here at American, I worked at Clemson University in South Carolina. So I'm happy to be continuing that work. So you'll see on the screen there our mission in student affairs. You'll also see kind of these 3 buckets. That first bucket being the area that we very loosely call well-being and student support, features our areas that surround student health, our Center for Wellbeing and Psychological Services, which I know you all are new, but in case you hear people referring to the Counseling Center, or HPAC, which is Health Promotions and our Advocacy Center. Those 2 units have merged, and now we refer to them as the Center for Wellbeing and Psychological Services. Also, our Office of the Dean of Students, which actually prior to this role, I served as the Dean of Students here at American University for almost 4 years. Our Student Accountability and Restorative Practices Unit. At other institutions that you may have worked at, this is our this is what we refer to as our student conduct arm. We are moving toward a more restorative approach in some aspects, therefore have changed our name just this past summer. That name will be new to everyone. And then lastly, and I believe you may have some time with the International Student and Scholar Services, abbreviated ISSS. That is the unit that works directly with our international students coming here to AU. We also have a broad area that we call student engagement and success. These are the areas that focus on our involvement, connection, and engagement of our students. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but if you're not aware, we do have about 4,400 of our undergraduates living with us in our residence halls. That's over half of our undergraduate population. So we have a pretty robust residential life team, from student staff to graduate staff to professional staff, working in the residence halls to make sure we're providing a quality residential experience to our students. Our Center for Student Involvement, traditionally on many campuses, that's our student activities area, student leadership, student government, fraternity and sorority life, all falls under that involvement arm. Our Center for Community Engagement and Service focuses on service learning and engaging within our broader campus community as well as the District of Columbia. Our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, Spiritual Life, also fall under that. And then what is really hot right now, with it being the first few days of the semester, just as you are all going through orientation, our students are working very closely with our new student families unit to onboard them to campus and make sure that they have all the tools they need to be successful here. We also have a third arm there that includes our university housing unit. That's different on our campus from residential life. Housing is more of the operations, assignments, facilities within those residence halls. And then lastly, our student center. Also called out a few of our campus partners here that we work very closely with. Many of these I know you'll be hearing from later today if you have not already, including our Academic Support and Access Center, the Office of Equity and Title IX, first year advising, all of our advising centers, and of course our police department are just a few of the critical partners that we work with within the Division of Student Affairs. So I want to start off by talking about students of concern and how we work with students of concern and the resources we have here on the American University campus. So you may have worked on a campus that has had a care team or a BIT team, which is a behavioral intervention team. What we have had here at American is we have what we call our care network as well as our care team. The care network is a broad group of individuals across the campus that work to intervene with students of concern at a variety of different levels. These include not only members of our Dean of Students team, but also members of our residential life team, first year advising, and many other campus partners across the university. We also have a second layer there, which is our care team. That is a much smaller group. And the care team is a group of staff that meets every single week, every Tuesday morning, to discuss very specific high-risk students or situations. And that group works to mitigate the concerns around those students, or works together to collaborate and coordinate care for those students. And that can look like a variety of different things. But that group, again, is really there to make sure that the highest risk situations are being dealt with and care is being coordinated across those. That group is led by a member of the Dean of Students team, and I'll talk to you a little bit here in a moment about how you would get a student into that system. So we also have our process of submitting care reports. So a care report is a report that any member of the American University community, students, faculty, staff, really anyone that's a part of the community can submit a care report to the Office of the Dean of Students. That report, the intention around that is to share a concern that you have about a student. It could be about a personal situation, a health situation, medical, mental health, a family situation that you've been made aware of. Maybe it's a death in the family, or maybe it's certain personal struggles that you are aware that a student is going through. So in order to submit a care report, you do that through the AU portal, and within the menu, you're going to see at the top there a selection that says express a concern about a student. That'll take you into our system where you can submit that care report. What's important to know is the care reports are read Monday through Friday during regular business hours. So care reports are not to be used for emergency situations. But if you are working with a student and you feel like someone else needs to know about whatever the situation is that's going on with the student, you would go ahead and submit this care report. A member of the Dean of Students team is going to read that report and make a decision in terms of what the next step is. Generally, the next step for a care report is that it be assigned to one of the members of our care network. It could be an advisor, it could be someone within the Dean of Students team. And what that person is going to do is to reach out to the student and ask that student to meet with them. Now, these situations are rarely ever situations that involve conduct or a violation of our student conduct code. They are situations where we are reaching out to a student to offer support for care, for referral to campus resources. Most of our students are going to be very willing to engage with us and will be very willing to accept that offer for help. However, it is important to know that we do have students who choose not to engage. And in most cases, we do not necessarily have the ability to compel them to meet with us, but we certainly make all efforts to attempt to engage with that student. Those meetings generally will end up with either one of two things happening: either the actual care network person working with that student directly with whatever that situation is to resolve it, or a referral to a specific campus resource. So for example, if it turns out that the situation surrounds their academic path, let's say, that student may then be, that student may then be referred to their academic advisor, because the academic advisor is going to be able to help them better than someone in the office of the dean of students. But we track these cases, we follow up with these cases, we create histories for the students, so we have a big, broad picture of what's going on with each student who has been submitted to the CARE report, to the CARE network. So as a faculty member, you certainly may be submitting CARE reports. One thing you should always expect is that when you submit a CARE report, generally within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to get an email response from the case manager for that report saying, thank you for submitting a report. I have been assigned the case manager. If you have further questions, please reach out to me with their email and phone number. We generally do not follow up directly with faculty to continually to update you on those cases. Some of that is really for two reasons. One is for privacy of the students. Second thing is the capacity. We get about 4,000 of these reports in an academic year that the Office of the Dean of Students is working with. But you should feel free to always reach out to that case manager for two things. If you have additional information that maybe you found out in further working with the student, or if you simply have questions about what is happening with that student, particularly if for some reason you do not see them re-engaging with you or coming to class, for example. I did mention that the CARE network should not be used for emergency situations. So we do have emergency resources available on campus. The two primary ones that you should be aware of, and I would advise that these phone numbers be placed in your cell phone or in a convenient place. Number one is protocol services. This is a crisis intervention service that the university is engaged with. They offer 24-hour day, 7-day a week, every single holiday of the year in 17 different languages, crisis intervention support for our students. So you should feel free to refer a student to that. You also should feel free to consult with that service if you just want to speak to a professional about maybe what you should do, or if you need advice on how to work with a student in certain situations. So they are connected directly to our Center for Wellbeing as well. Also, should you ever be in a situation where a student has expressed self-harm or has expressed harm to another individual, that is not an appropriate situation that would be referred to the CARE network. It eventually would be on the back end, but for the immediacy concern around that situation, our police department should be contacted, and you'll see the emergency number located on the screen there as well. And I would advise that you have that on hand just in case. The last thing I'll say about this area around the CARE network. So the CARE network and the Dean of Students group deals a lot with students who are experiencing health concerns, whether it be medical or mental health. You may occasionally get letters from the Dean of Students expressing what a student is working through, possibly excusing them from classes. All of that information in regards to healthcare information would flow through the Office of the Dean of Students. Faculty members should never be asking for documentation. That information should be coming from, coming to the Office of the Dean of Students, and in turn, then we would be communicating with the students, faculty, as well as their advisors. Regarding class absences, you see on the screen there the actual regulation from the undergraduate class attendance regulations. Generally, the one-off absences, so a student has a cold, the student needed to take a day, those absences would be excused by the faculty at their discretion. So please make sure that you're thinking through about how you would handle those. Any sort of longer term medical event, those situations would be coming through the Dean of Students office, and we would be issuing letters to the faculty members regarding the absence for the students. Again, anytime you get those letters, you will have a contact information should you have questions, or if you need to follow up with that specific case manager regarding the students. All right. Next section, let's talk a little bit about health and well-being resources, since we've been talking about that shortly. The basics in terms of what you need to know as a new faculty member here at American. We do have a full-service student health center on campus. It's located in McCabe Hall. What you can think of the student health center is basically a comprehensive primary care service. So very similar to a family doctor. They provide all of those services that you would generally find at a family practitioner. Any of our students, as long as they're enrolled in at least 1 credit hour, have access and have the ability to be seen at our student health center. You'll see the hours on your screen 8 to 5:30, Monday through Friday. We are an appointment-based system, so they need to reach out and either call, or they can make an appointment through the student health portal with their preferred practitioner in the student health center. It's important, again, to know that the student health center is not an emergency medical care center. So if students are experiencing any sort of emergency medical need, the protocol is to reach out directly to AUPD. They have the direct connections to the DC fire and EMS services and would work together in response to that student emergency for transport to the hospital if that is the assessment that is made. We then, in the Dean of Students office, work directly with that student upon their return. And again, with any sort of extended absences that would be a result of a situation like this. And again, just please note that the Student Health Center would not be able to provide you details around a student's health concerns. Continuing on the health and well-being path, we spoke briefly at the start about our Center for Wellbeing Programs and Psychological Services. They are actually right now located in 2 different places on campus. The clinical piece is located in the Mary Graydon Center, which is our student center. The health promotions and well-being programs is located in Hughes Hall, which is the first floor of one of our residence halls. So you'll see on the screen there what this center provides: mental health screenings, both individual and group psychotherapy. The group process, the group psychotherapy, is a continually growing option for our students. So you may hear and you may see the different groups that are available to our students, and we certainly encourage participation in either or both of those types of psychotherapy. They also offer wellness consultations. We do have a victims advocate located in our center, supporting victims of sexual assaults. We also have a staff member dedicated to working with students on alcohol and other drug consultations. So not only on a proactive basis, but also on a reactive basis. So should we have a student who has gotten into situations involving alcohol or other drugs, particularly around if they were ever transported for an alcohol overdose or drug overdose, we have protocols in place where those students would be required to meet with the staff in the Center for Wellbeing to address those concerns, as well as through other venues as well. Again, I cannot reemphasize enough the ability of the 24-hour crisis support via AU protocol services. Again, that is connected, not run by, but connected to our Center for Wellbeing. So they do have the ability that if, for example, protocol services was engaged with a student, but that student is also working with a clinician in the Center for Wellbeing, there is an ability for that information to be shared between those clinicians on a regular basis as needed there. And again, if you are working with a student and you are seeing them expressing needs for these types of services, that student can be referred directly to the Center for Wellbeing. They do not need to go through their advisor. They do not need to go through the Dean of Students office. They can simply call the Center for Wellbeing and make an appointment to speak with a clinician there for an intake. So a few other things about the Office of the Dean of Students, and when I meet with students during the student orientation, I often tell the parents of those students that the Dean of Students can, in some capacities, be looked at as a catch-all. So if you are in a situation working with a student and you don't really maybe know where to go, you don't know if you need to refer them to their advisor or to the counseling center, the Dean of Students office is a logical place for you to start, as it is for our students. So we talked a little bit about the care reports, and again, to go a little bit deeper in that, the care reports can be submitted for a variety of reasons, including, as we said, healthcare situations, housing insecurity, food insecurities, family issues, financial issues, academic concerns, and our process will sort those situations out and make sure that if it isn't something that would be handled by the Dean of Students office, we are engaging the appropriate office to make sure that that intervention is happening. The office does offer in-person as well as virtual appointments. We do it all electronically from the Dean of Students website. Students have to make that appointment on their own. So faculty or staff nor parents can make those appointments for their students. The staff is available for consultation. So again, if you have questions and you just need to know and need a little more information about maybe where do you go, the staff can certainly be available for consultation as well. Confidentiality. So one word about care reports. Care reports actually do fall under and are protected by FERPA as they are part of the student record. So we are very sensitive to that. We seek the appropriate releases when need be, and certainly are able to share with you on a need-to-know basis, or should there be any sort of health or safety issue in working with that student. I want to say a few words just really quickly about the Office of Student Accountability and Restorative Practices. So this is the office that on many campuses is known as the Conduct Office. They have the responsibility of enforcing our student code of conduct. So if you have not taken a moment to at least peruse that and take a look at what is covered in there, that code, which is available through the American University Policy Library or on the department website, will outline what the prohibited conduct is for our campus, as well as the multiple processes we have to resolve violations of the student code of conduct. Again, if you are ever in a situation where you are dealing with a potential violation of that code, you are able to report that directly to the Student Conduct Office on their website, or certainly consult with the staff in that office if you have questions about maybe wondering if it is something that falls under the code or not. A word about the Washington College of Law, in case any of you are faculty within WCL. The code does apply to WCL in terms of prohibited conduct. However, any violations of that would be handled through the honor code within WCL. So it's a slightly different process. And that process is led by David Jaffe's team over at WCL. One quick word about restorative practices. I mentioned this at the front of our session. We are making a move to offer more alternative ways to resolve conflict and to resolve violations of our student code. We have 2 staff members dedicated to working with restorative justice and restorative practices. We've been doing this for a little bit over a year at this point with several success on several cases here. So don't be surprised if you are engaged in a situation that maybe is a violation of the code of conduct, and there is some conversations about, could this possibly be resolved in a more restorative way? And should you ever get to that point, we would have staff that would be willing to speak with you much more in depth about that. So real quickly about confidentiality and privacy, I'm not sure if you have gotten into this real in depth, but I know many of you have worked at other colleges and universities and have similar situations and similar policies. I would make sure that you're aware of our confidentiality of student records policy and have read that. It is available through the AU Policy Library. And then just understanding your role in terms of FERPA and how that applies to you. The one piece I do want to make sure that you are aware of is that when we are in situations where the health or safety of a student is apparent, we do have an exception with FERPA in terms of contacting, beyond just the student in those situations. Again, if you ever have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to the Office of the Dean of Students or Student Accountability and Restorative Practices. But generally, information is shared on a need-to-know basis when you're talking about specific student cases. Just a few words about confidential resources. We do have 3 categories here that you'll see on the screen. Our psychologist and victims advocate in our Center for Wellbeing, our medical providers in the Student Health Center, as well as our ordained chaplains in K Spiritual Life. Those are resources available on campuses to students that are not mandated reporters to share such things as sexual assault type cases or Title IX type violations. So students are generally made aware of this during a session they'll have during orientation. If you've used a restroom on campus, you have probably seen the stickers that summarize the services available regarding confidential resources, as well as equity and Title IX. And I believe you will be hearing from them later today. So as we start to wrap up just a little bit here, as we get close to time here, I'm often asked, like, well, what can I do as a faculty member? How can I best support students and make sure that our students, are having a holistically positive experience here at AU? Number one, listen, support, and seek to understand. So oftentimes we see students who just need someone to talk to. And if they're speaking to you as a faculty member, I would generally say that that means they feel comfortable with you. And oftentimes they just need an ear. They need someone to kind of hear their concern versus automatically just hearing like, oh, well, you've been sick, go to the Dean of Students office. So I think just taking that moment to really understand what the student is experiencing and how it's impacting the experience that they're having with you in your classroom. Number two is being knowledgeable of university resources. We're very fortunate here to have some great resources and great staff that are really dedicated to working and supporting students, on a regular basis. And for many of these staff, this is their full-time job, is simply supporting students who need that additional help. So be knowledgeable of protocol services, what is offered through our Center for Wellbeing, what the role the academic advisor plays, what is offered through the Academic Support and Access Center, and just having a general understanding of where a student would go for certain requests. Second, and kind of along with that, is being able to refer to those resources, having that knowledge and being able to say, oh, well, this is something that may be best resolved by working with your academic advisor. Is really powerful, because the faster we can get a student to the person that can help them, the better, versus giving them a runaround. They're having to bounce from different offices before they're able to get back on track, I think is really important. Reporting concerns early so interventions can occur. Way too often do we see something in, let's just say, November, rise to the surface that's an issue, yet it had been going on for 8 weeks in the classroom. So I think the earlier, if you see something, it's kind of the whole adage of if you see something, say something. I think in most cases, we'd rather have a report that is maybe requires minimal action on the front end versus something 8 weeks down the road that is now, I'm being dramatic a little bit, a catastrophe for the student. So thinking through about when is the right time to share what you are sharing, and certainly asking the student, if you have a student in front of you, being able to say to them, hey, I understand your concern. There are people here that can help you. Do you mind if I submit a care report for you? And someone's going to reach out to you. Happens all the time. Consulting with resources, colleagues, and your department and school leadership. So use each other as resources. Use the departments that I just shared with you as resources. And at times, your department heads or your associate deans may be great resources as well. So familiarize yourself with those as well. And then lastly, follow up accordingly. So if you get additional information that you think might be valuable, through a referral, share that, check back in with that student, show that you care, and show that, there is a caring community here at AU to work with the students. All right, I know that was a lot of information, and I have 1 minute for any questions.
Feel free to unmute and go on camera, Rob, if you want to ask your question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Jeff, I think you do a great job. I'm Rob Engel, and I've been an adjunct in SPA for, I'll just say, forever, now coming on a full-time basis. I spent a lot of my time working on disability advocacy, and also we're working on a Center for the Study of Disabilities at AU. So I just wanted to remind all folks about accommodations and accommodations that students have, and to be open to those accommodations and to be helpful in making sure that their needs are being taken care of. So as I focus on disabilities, I work with disability student centers, and I think accommodations, and Jeff, you've done such a fantastic job. So I say thank you to you for doing that, but I wanted to remind everybody that accommodations are a critical component to our work at American.
Thank you, Rob. Greatly appreciate your comments and your compliments. And I know I see Lindsay Northrop Moore in the room as well, as the next session is on accommodations and disability. So great transition, and thank you for your work as well.
Thank you for joining us, Jeff. If there are any more questions, can people reach out directly to you, or are you able to stay and answer some questions in the chat perhaps for a bit?
I can stay for a few seconds and answer them in the chat. My screen also shows my contact information, phone number, Teams, and email. Just be cautious. There's at times a faculty member with the same name as me, as well as a student. So make sure you've got the right one. But thank you to everyone, and I wish you the best.